and welcome back. It's now 10 minutes away from 7 o'clock, and we've been joined on set by Antoinette Moore, Country Director, Michael McCullough, Director for Latin America and the Caribbean, and Marcel Guzman, the Rojas, International Consultant, all for the American Bar Association Rule of Law Initiative. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's start off with a very basic understanding of what exactly is the American Bar Association Rule of Law Initiative.
Well, okay. I'll go ahead and field that one. The ABA Rule of Law Initiative, as the name would suggest, is part of the larger American Bar Association. We specifically implement grants from donors, such as the State Department in this case, to work overseas and support other countries in their legal reform processes. So we work with other countries, help them to improve justice in their countries, providing technical legal assistance and working hand in hand with them to improve justice for all citizens.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's start internationally first. How many countries do we see this initiative affecting?
We're currently working in about 40 countries around the world, which includes 6 in Latin America and the Caribbean, obviously Belize, also Ecuador, Panama, Mexico, Guatemala, and Nicaragua.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about transnational crime, we're talking about crime that obviously moves across borders. What are some of the common things that we see internationally and then particularly in this region?
Well, obviously, one of the major ones is human trafficking. Mm-hmm. And that is a crime that has existed for a long time, but has really only come to the forefront, I'd say, in the last 5 years or so. And of course, in Belize, we're very, very aware of it at this moment because of matters that have happened in the recent months with respect to persons coming in through the Philip Golson International Airport with obvious illegal reasons. Besides human trafficking, money laundering is another major transnational crime, which again is something that has happened for many, many years, but has just recently received prominence and a greater understanding by the public and by law enforcement, truthfully. And then, of course, the other one, which people are much more familiar with, is drug trafficking. Gun smuggling. I mean, we could go on, but the 3 major ones that we will concentrate on is human trafficking, drug trafficking, and money laundering.
Now, we've seen a lot of initiatives to really move the world towards greater globalization and global trade. We've seen more in the illicit areas take off. How do you combat a phenomenon like that when it's so widespread and the connections are so deeply rooted in so many varied places?
Well, that's a great question. Obviously, it does require a level of international coordination, which is being conducted by donors, again, such as the State Department. So we're obviously working, in this case, specifically in the context of Belize. But as a general strategy, you work to conduct institutional strengthening. You work closely with institutions such as attorneys general, courts, and police, helping them to be smarter, more efficient, more effective, to have more information, to have more intelligence in a strategic sense, so that they're able to compete with these organizations, these cartels and gangs, which are transnational, which are extremely well-funded, very capable, so that the law enforcement authorities can compete with them and hopefully defeat them.
Okay.
Now, Marcel, as I'll use the term international hitman, so to speak, how do you make an evaluation as you move from place to place, given the fact that we have British law, we have so many varied...
and even cultural context.
And cultural contexts to work through. How do you step in, make an evaluation, and make some recommendations?
Well, at the beginning, there has been an evaluation that has been made before and of the justice and law enforcement situation here in Belize, and it happens in any country. And then the countries get together, and in this case, they agreed on a working plan. And one of those elements in the working plan, in this cooperation agreement, was to improve the justice sector. As you said before, there is a lot of cooperation in the economic area, in in commerce. But justice has lagged behind. The criminals have not lagged behind. So we have to improve that and level the field and give the justice operators, that's the police, the prosecutor, and the courts, the tools to combat crime at the same level that the criminals now are working, with technology, of course.
Now,
when you first started, Michael, you talked primarily about legal reform. Now, coming in as an international initiative, perhaps making recommendations on our local laws, what is that process like? Do you think that you're able to go into a country and perhaps see a bit of tweaking that may be necessary to strengthen the legal system where it is, and expect to have positive results?
Well, obviously, it depends on the country in question, and it certainly helps in a country like Belize, as is the case here, to have counterparts that are very savvy, that really understand the legal issues. Two of our precepts are very important here. One is that we do work in a very consultative fashion. We come in and we ask the counterparts how they see the system, what they see as being the most critical needs. We also have a very comparative perspective. We recognize, for example, that U.S. legal authority can be helpful, but it's certainly not the only perspective. We bring a perspective from around the world, from the countries in which we have worked. And as I mentioned, we currently work in 40 countries, and I believe over our 20 years, we've worked in some 80 countries. So our work really is informed by lessons learned and successes in countries that have faced similar problems. So we do come in and we work with our partners, but again, supporting them in their reform efforts, simply bringing a different perspective.
For example, here in Belize, we will have a working group, which will be comprised of members from the police department, the prosecution, the judiciary. So it will not be someone from the outside coming in and saying, this is what we think needs to happen. It will be all of us working together, saying these are the things that need to be tweaked, these are the things that need improvement. For example, with Marcel, who's working on the computerized case tracking system, he has been meeting with people for months within the police department, within the DPP's office, and even within the judiciary. So it's a very collaborative effort.
In terms of the needs, our judiciary specifically in Belize has been under the microscope, and there's been a lot of different issues that has arisen, and even with the police department. Now, and the major issues that is obviously being tackled here are things that we've seen come to headline stories, and so we know, we see the need for all of the points the initiative is trying to make. From the inside, from the judiciary, from the police department, what is the sentiment that you get in being able to work towards perfecting the system to be able to counter these type of crimes?
Yes, I'm pleased to say that there is a great deal of cooperation. I don't see any resistance, in fact. At this point, I can't say what will happen going forward, but I don't think so. I think both, or all three sectors really, the police, the prosecution in particular, and the judiciary all realize that they're under-resourced, that they are up against great odds with the level of criminality in our country now and the international aspects of transnational crime. And I believe they desire the assistance from the outside. They desire different and innovative ways to attack the problems that we face. So thus far, we're having no resistance and a great deal of working together. And I hope that that will continue.
Now, when you come to combat transnational crimes, for example, the fact that you have varying laws from country to country, you have different resources and different capacities. How do you level I don't want to say the playing field, but the abilities in all 40 countries that you're working with? I know computerizing is one area, but that's one area. You may still have human resource deficiencies. How do you level it, and how much of a long-term project is this? Is it a hit and go, or is it a sustained effort?
I think that this is obviously a first important step as part of a much larger, longer-term process. A 2-year program can have a significant impact, but hopefully it's only the beginning of an extended process of technical legal assistance. In terms of how you can achieve those results at the international level, our scope of work, fortunately, is limited only to Belize. The larger international questions are left for donor organizations, multilateral institutions such as the UN and the OAS. But I think you made an important point. For example, the I-4 system that Marcel is developing that will be implemented in Belize is exactly the kind of tool that you can use, and I'll let Marcel speak at greater detail, but that's the kind of tool that you can use to facilitate international communication between countries so that there's almost real-time information between one country and another as to what the same criminal syndicate might be doing in both countries.
And the fact, if you effectively combat crime in one country, you're making crime less successful. And that is also containing the widespread of the crime in the world. So when we talk of reducing the crime or being more effective in prosecuting criminals and effectively convicting them by rule of law, we are reducing the opportunity that criminals have to operate in Belize. If other countries, neighboring countries like Mexico, Guatemala, the US also effectively combat crime, then the whole criminal activity in the region will be reduced because it's more difficult to make crime. You cannot standardize what is a crime and what is not a crime, because that goes also on cultural levels, on the capabilities of law enforcement that each country has. But if you generally reduce and you focus on some crimes that are very violent and that are very damaging to the society, then if each country does its part, he's also benefiting the world in that way and benefiting from the efforts that other countries are doing in reducing their crimes at home.
Tell us a bit more about the computer system that you're working on. Is it simply a database of offenders of these type of crimes, or is it more than that?
It is significantly different, let me tell you. There was a time in which it was very common that the computerized law enforcement system were just a criminal records, where you could see the priors of a suspect. But that has brought a lot of help, and it has reached a ceiling. We are implementing a system that goes far beyond. What we're actually doing is we are registering the different stages of a case from the police through the prosecutor to the judiciary. That means the case flow is significantly less time. It is easier to do. For example, one of the huge advantages is that the physical case file doesn't need to be moved. What happened? The case file was made at the police, then it was sent to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor analyzed it and sent it back for the police to enhance the investigation. And that takes time. That is
And
also
sometimes they get missing?
it can happen. So we are avoiding that, in which we are putting not only the information on the suspect, but also the police reports and the findings of the investigation in the criminal case. So the collaboration between the police and the prosecutor can be greatly enhanced. And we're taking one step further. We're including the judiciary there.
Now, Antoinette, I just to add on to that, because you understand our local context here, do you see computerized systems and the documentation of this process being something that will be effective at this point in time in Belize?
I do believe so. I will be honest that at the very beginning I was a little doubtful. But I've been convinced. And I really do think, listening to the police and the prosecution now, that they really need this and they want it. And so I'm confident that they're going to use it. Because that was my concern, that this would be put in place and then perhaps people wouldn't actually use it. Right, but I believe that they will. And it will solve many of the problems, the practical problems we've had in the past.